Today, the Department of Justice and the State Department announced a historic $50 million reward for information, leading to the arrest of Maduro. Just a few days ago, U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi dropped a bombshell: the reward for turning in the Venezuelan dictator, Maduro, or for information leading to his imprisonment, has been raised to $50 million. This is because the Treasury Department considers the Cartel of the Suns to be a transnational criminal organization with terrorist ties, an organization led by Maduro himself, and that's not all. The United States now claims to have seized more than $700 million in assets linked directly to Maduro. These include private jets, mansions, farms, vehicles, and a trove of jewelry. Following the announcement of the new bounty on his head, Washington seems to have launched a strong political and rhetorical offensive from several angles, while at the same time renewing Chevron's license to keep exploiting Venezuelan crude oil. Could we be seeing two separate agendas at work? Which one will prevail? Only time will tell. For now, the leading figure in this public offensive is, unsurprisingly, Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Still, there's another side to the story, because the White House has also been negotiating with the Venezuelan government almost up until yesterday. Recently, the two sides agreed that Venezuela would accept deportation flights and prisoner exchanges. And again, Chevron's operating license in the country has been renewed. But now that these agreements are signed, it seems the other agenda has kicked in. With Maduro suddenly returning to the list of top enemies in the Trump administration's war on drugs, something that shouldn't surprise anyone. Since the narco dictatorship label has been around for years, labeling the Maduro regime as a narcoterrorist group, a cartel that threatens the integrity of the United States, could have very serious consequences. When Washington calls a drug trafficker a terrorist, it's not just tossing out a legal insult. It can open the door to using military intelligence, funding for special operations, drones, special forces, and even naval operations. Up until now, the DEA and law enforcement handled such matters. But with this designation, the trafficker becomes an outright enemy of the state. Trump has even suggested he would consider using U.S. armed forces in Latin America, possibly in Mexico, Venezuela, or even Colombia against cartels. Is that likely? Probably not. Since acting unilaterally would cause a direct clash with the international community and drag the U.S. into a massive hornet's nest. But the warning is out there. Here's where it gets interesting. In the face of this threat, Maduro has found a powerful ally, not Cuba's dictator, not Iran's leader, not even Vladimir Putin, but Colombia's own president, Gustavo Petro. Petro publicly declared that Colombia and Venezuela are the same people, the same flag, the same history, and that any military operation not approved by both countries would be an act of aggression against Latin America and the Caribbean. In other words, an attack on Venezuela would be considered an attack on Colombia. Petro later tried to clarify his comments, saying he meant both countries should work together against drug trafficking. But that clarification actually implies cooperating with a regime that international reports accuse of being deeply involved in the drug trade. For the U.S. government, Maduro isn't just a dictator, he's the head of the Cartel of the Suns, a specially designated global terrorist entity in the same category as Al-Qaeda. The regime's alleged operations include large-scale cocaine trafficking, working with Colombian narcoterrorist networks, sheltering guerrilla leaders like Marquez, in maintaining ties with criminal groups from Mexican cartels to distribution networks in Africa and Europe. The U.S. has now set a bounty on Maduro's head higher than the one once offered for Osama bin Laden, yet Petro is openly criticizing the move. This is the same Petro who once accused Chavismo of repression, but is now siding with Caracas against Washington in a country, Colombia, that has long suffered from the ravages of drug trafficking. Why? What does Colombia gain from aligning with one of the hemisphere's biggest cocaine exporters? And why has Trump decided to go all in against Maduro now? The situation is a geopolitical chess game involving drug routes, energy interests, Russian influence, and regional alliances. Petro may be trying to position himself as the leader of an independent Latin America, free from Washington's influence. May also see economic opportunities if sanctions on Venezuela ease cheaper oil and gas, joint projects, new markets. It could also be political. pleasing the radical wing of his base that views Maduro as an anti-imperialist symbol. Or, with his term running out, Petro may want to burnish his own profile as a leftist figurehead. Whatever the motive, the risks are enormous. Petro and Maduro have announced the creation of the first binational peace economic zone along their shared border, specifically in Colombia. Norte, Santander, and La Guajira departments, alongside Venezuela's and Zulia states. On paper, this would attract investments, foster agricultural projects, and coordinate security. In reality, the region is a hotbed of guerrillas, criminal gangs, smugglers, and narco-traffickers. Critics warn it could become a highway for organized crime under the cover of peace and development. Maduro claims the zone will attract Chinese, Indian, Russian, and Turkish investors and be free of drug trafficking and violence. But his government has long been accused of protecting the very armed groups he says he eliminates. This makes Colombia's willingness to tie itself politically and institutionally to Caracas all the more baffling. From Washington's perspective, the move is alarming, especially since the U.S. sees the Cartel of the Suns as a terrorist organization. The geopolitical web doesn't stop with Petro and Maduro. Russia is a major player with the Wagner Group operating in Venezuela. Military cooperation agreements in place, and even a Kalashnikov ammunition factory producing up to 70 million cartridges a year. Trade between Venezuela and Russia jumped 64% in 2024, bypassing Western banking systems with Russia's SPFS payment network. Iran is also in the mix, having supplied fuel, refinery repairs, and oil tankers to help Venezuela skirt sanctions. These partnerships give Maduro much-needed logistical autonomy and political oxygen. So, is Petro genuinely trying to support Maduro, or does he have a hidden plan to dilute the alliance? One thing is certain. Mixing politics, drugs, and oil rarely leads to anything straightforward, and what's brewing on the Colombia-Venezuela border could reshape the entire regional balance of power.